The opinions and views expressed in the following program are those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and Your Sports Network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
What is up, everybody? Welcome inside a Wednesday episode of Running Point on ysnlive.com. As always, brought to you by our good friends. Right above our heads, we have the big logos today because it's a Wednesday. We have our nice little two-box, me and Scotty Mincher right beside me. Scotty, how we doing, buddy?
I'm great. I'm still on like a high.
I was going to ask, are we still on Cloud 9 from Sunday?
We are still on cloud nine.
Scotty,
Still-
let's talk about this All-Star game, buddy. Let's talk about your perspective from it. Obviously, you were there for pretty much the whole night. What was it like getting there and then knowing the dunk contest was getting closer and closer and watching the girls' game and the skills competition before? What was it like, that anticipation building up to your big moment?
Yeah, it was one of those things where like it's funny because I was loving it as soon as I got there. Like you could just feel the energy inside that place. It was just everywhere, and I had like immediate goosebumps. I could feel from the second I got there and got in, and it was like one of those things where I was trying to just savor the moment and enjoy everything, but I couldn't help but have those butterflies as the dunk contest got closer and closer. But I think that I was just enjoying everything so much. The girls' game, the 3-point competitions, that it just seemed that like when it was first happening, I'm like, man, this is gonna be a long night. This is gonna take a while. And then it was just like hyper speed. It seemed like uh, after I was thinking that, like the night went so fast, and I thought everything DJ touched on this. I was able to see a little bit of the Monday Power Hour, even though I had therapy. And he said how everything he thought was just tremendous. It was outstanding having it for the first year. And I totally agree. I thought everything was just like such a hit. And there was so much excitement and tension, but like that good tension where it's kind of like that good anxiety where you're a little bit nervous, and sometimes the nerves could be bad, but it was more so of just I felt like I was ready. So it was just such a great night. And once again, another thing that stuck out is just there's so much intensity from the girls during the girls all-star game, and just the way how fast they were moving up and down the floor. And you could tell, not that the boys weren't, but the girls were like, man, we're gonna do like you thought last year was something. We'll show you what we could do this year, and it was just so much intensity, great intensity, and just great efforts up and down the floor. It was just exciting stuff, man.
Yeah, me and DJ talked about. I don't know if you caught this part of the show, but talking about intensity, like the girls, we were trying to get them to like interact in social media during the game. You know, go live on Instagram on the bench and stuff like that. But they were so locked in, like they've been hardwired as athletes to always be focused and locked into the game. That they didn't do it. They just kind of sat there and they watched the game. They were in depth in it. They were focused in it. It was intense, and I always tell people every year. Um, I tell it to our executive staff when we're talking about building the All Star game for basketball, and I tell everyone on the broadcast like these girls do not turn competitiveness off. Like they're gonna go full competitiveness with this All Star game. Yes, they'll have fun. Yes, it's not as stressful. You know, winning doesn't mean anything. You don't get anything for winning the game, but you get a little bit. You don't get material wise for winning the game. But these girls take winning that game pretty dang seriously because they look across the bench, and I've been there. I've walked the bench. I've talked to them. They look across the bench and they say, "Those are all stars too," and I want to prove to everyone here that I and this team belong on the same floor as those girls over there, and especially with softball because I've been in that dugout coaching it. They were so fired up because it's like a lot of these girls are going up against players they never got to compete with, and they've heard about them all year on YSN. They've heard about them being hyped up, and now it's their chance to go and compete against them. So, yeah, it's all fun. It's an event, of course, but especially for the girls' game, there's just no way to turn off that mentality of I'm going to go out there and compete the hardest I can do.
Yeah, it just, and that's the exact feeling that I got. Is, man, like these girls are just, they take the competitiveness, like it's just on a level that's just such a high
I mean, they
level.
were diving on the floor for loose balls. I mean, who does that in an all-star game? Like you're supposed to let it go. Not play defense, just let people jack up threes, score as many points as possible. What I loved about it, what told me like this is a real all-star game. They were playing hard defense, but it was still like 82-72. The offense is still there for the girls.
Yeah, it was for sure. Uh, to your point, to kind of go off of that, I remember vividly a couple fast breaks, like a couple different instances where there were fast breaks, and there were some hard fouls,
Yes.
and I'm like, whoa, like so much for it being all fun and games.
No.
And
You're not getting a free layup on me. I don't care if it's an all-star game.
yeah,
And there were college coaches in the stands. That probably turned things up a little bit too
it was
for the
like,
underclassmen.
like the physicality. I think people just they think about things sometimes in a vacuum, and they say that, like, a lot of times, like, people talk about how, not all, but they'll say how, like, most guys, when it comes to sports, are like, they're just stronger. Like, they'll mention how they're stronger, but some of the physicality I saw just from the girls and in that game, it's like, man, like, times are changing for sure.
I
Like,
think one of the reasons you see that, and that's a great point. A lot of people, especially in today's world where the women's game is starting to take a little bit of a steps up, and there are those people that are they're scared of that. They want to keep it men up here, women down here. So they'll say stuff like, well, there's that big story about the WNBA team wanting to play a high school state basketball team. I'm sure you saw it. It was all over social media. Like they're different, right? And we don't say, well, the women's game is just as good because women can go and beat men on the floor. No, we say it's just as good because it's its own thing and it's just as fun to watch. And I think one of the reasons why it's hard to turn that competitiveness and that physicality off for the girls' side is because like they don't have that ability to just go up and dunk on anyone. Like they have to make up for a little bit of lack of athleticism or a little bit of lack of just that strength and power with physicality, with pushing people around, and it's hard to turn that off in basketball.
Yeah, and there was also, and I know as you were announcing, and you always do a great job. I mean, I am a little biased because I've been on this show with you a while now, but you always do a great job when you're announcing. You're like in the zone, but you're still like very sociable and giving me the fist bumps and
Mhm.
acknowledging that I'm there. Like it's never too much for you. It was really cool to see you take part in all the photos and everything from everyone that got their accolades and stuff like that. But I also during the game I saw a couple really great there were some great passes in that game,
Mhm.
the girls all star game.
That's how the girls show off. The boys will dunk, the girls will do these little behind the back like things they would never really try to get away with in an actual game that meant something. The no look passes. I saw a couple of those last year. Katie Grexa had like a no look behind the back pass at YSU. I'll never forget that. Seeing that on the broadcast. So they try to get away with that kind of stuff, or little ball handling crossovers that they wouldn't really pull out in a real game. I thought Sophia Gregory was gonna dunk. I was promised that we were gonna get a dunk. So it's a little disappointing. Whatever. So no, but Sophia Gregory, everyone did great. Now I love being able to interview all of our postseason award winners on the broadcast as well. And like you said, Scotty, in an All Star game when you're broadcasting it, you get to let your hair down a little bit. You're not as buttoned up as a broadcaster. We just had fun. Me and Mike just had fun with it.
Yeah,
And we broke some of the broadcasting rules, which you can do in an All Star game.
yeah, and I think that is the fun part of it. I um,
The,
couldn't hear everything you were um, conversing about, obviously, but I saw several times the stars come over and you were talking to them mid game. So
Mhm.
I thought that was super, super cool.
The hardest part, Scotty, was picking the MVP because you're watching the game, you're having fun, you're broadcasting it. So then you also have to focus on, okay, who really stood out in the 8 minutes they probably got on the floor, and then I have to remember what everyone was doing because there's so many players there. So picking the MVP was tough, and we wanted to stay away from recency bias because we were talking a lot about Eliana Thompson. She came in late in that last quarter, or I should say, the waning minutes of the last half. And she scored like 10 points in a row. We were like, oh man, she's playing so well. But then me and Mike were like, okay, but let's look at the game as a whole. Who was in consistently? And that's why we picked Ashley Schroeder because she got in a couple of times and felt like she was an impact of the game the whole game. But it was really hard to kind of talk through who was going to be the MVP of the All Star game.
Yeah, and then I mean, it went down to the wire too.
It did.
That was great theater.
Both games were close, and
And
all the skills competitions had to have a tiebreaker. You look at
yeah,
it, the 3-point contest, two people tied in the first round in the girls' side. That had to be a tiebreaker. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. They got Ella Kuzmal into the final, and then she won it. Look at the boys' 3-point contest. They had to go back to the volleyball line to decide that one. You
yeah,
know,
DJ, he kind of talks about like in jest. He'll talk about with me about how such a big homer I am, but like it really like if you weren't there, like just us talking about it doesn't do it justice. I
right?
mean, that was like I don't think we could have scripted a better outcome than what we saw that night with everything together. I mean, that was just great theater.
The 3-2-1 also had a tiebreaker in the first round that had to be settled with rock, paper, scissors. And then here we go into the dunk contest, which was also one that had two people tied after the first round, and they went to the finals. Scotty, let's talk about this dunk contest, buddy. You were the first judge introduced. What was it like to come out of that weight room and come across the floor with everyone, screaming your name and having that introduction?
Yeah, it's funny because I've talked to you about this, Anthony, before about how I tried as much as possible, and I know you have too. Um, like from the time I was little, like not letting my wheelchair stop me from participating in playing sports. And I know you've been a big part of Challenger baseball and stuff like that. And I used to always, like growing up in the backyard, we play baseball just about every day in the summer. And every day I would be up there, I'd be hitting the ball most of the time with a uh we'd have a wiffle ball, so I'd have the wiffle ball bat. But I just like sports has it's always kind of been that thing. It's been my comfort zone. It's been comforting, almost like a kind of like a warm blanket, when it's freezing out and you get under that and you just instantly feel better and safe. And it's one of those things, tying it into this all-star game and the dunk contest and what it was like. It was such a great rush of adrenaline when DJ announced me as the first judge, and he gave me praise, and everyone in the gym erupted when I had my chair. I think I had it on the high speed without realizing I wasn't going as fast as I can. But I'm like, whoa, I think the adrenaline just kind of took over because I think I was moving pretty fast, but it didn't even really feel like it. But just to have that, it was so special, and it's something I'll never forget. Just how everyone went crazy for me, and I really haven't experienced anything like that in quite a long time. I did in high school. I did win prom king, but I gotta say, being a judge at the slam dunk contest and getting that ovation, that was even better. And I really don't think it was close because it had to do with sports, which I love the most. So yeah, I really didn't expect to get that warm of a reception, but it just feels good to know that, like, when you can impact people, Anthony, and you said this in your um, YSN promo, when you can impact and touch the lives of other people and kind of give them a chance to shine, and they get the spotlight a little bit and you're a part of it. It's really special, but also just knowing that that many people care about you and cheer your name and are in your court. It really was a humbling experience for sure.
Scotty, I don't know how much, if you've ever thought about this, but I always, sometimes when I get time to reflect, I think, like, isn't it amazing that, like, you and I are both in, like, the same situation? We both have disabilities. We both went through early years of school and high school and middle school where we couldn't really compete with our peers per se athletically. Obviously, we couldn't get into middle school, high school sports. We didn't have that kind of opportunity. We had challenger baseball. I had Special Olympics basketball and softball. Um, but we still found this passion for sports, even though we couldn't play it at a level with our peers. Do you ever stop and think like how cool that is? That like, or maybe it makes our passion even more the fact that we don't take it for granted because we can't do it. Do you ever think about like how that comes about or why that is? I kind of find myself thinking like, how in the world did I become such a huge sports fan when I can't play sports? I think for me, it came from supporting athletes even at an early age when I was in middle school and seeing how much that support meant to the athletes that I was supporting. That really drove my fandom, like my ability to be a fan. And I think that's one of the reasons why like my passion for sports got ignited the way it did. But it's really fun to kind of think about in your life like when did I become this super fan, this super passionate person about sports. When most people, when you ask that, it's because of a memory they have playing it with their classmates or when they were playing, in a high school basketball, whatever it may be. For us, it's different. We don't get to say, well, it was when I played high school basketball or when I played, in seventh grade and this coach taught me this or that. We don't have that moment where we say this is when I fell in love with sports. Ours is different. Do you ever kind of reflect on when you became passionate about supporting sports and when you became such a sports fanatic and why it became such a big part of your life?
Yeah, I definitely will. I'll reflect on that quite often. And, it does a large part of it, and I talked about this before, has to do with my dad because he was such a sports fanatic when he was younger and growing up and, raising me. Sports meant a lot to him, and his favorite basketball player of all time is Michael Jordan. So it was like that perfect combination of that was his favorite player, and also around that time, I'm a couple years older than you, Anthony. So I was young. I was really young, but I could remember Jordan's last couple years with the Bulls, and because he's my dad's favorite, player as far as professional goes, and um, the Bulls would always be on. It kind of ignited me, helped me get into sports, but it wasn't all my dad either. I think I just kind of I like the idea of competition, and as a lot of people say that love sports, and it really is true. Like competition brings out the best in everybody, and from the time I was little, I just liked the idea of okay, somebody's gonna win this game, and somebody's gonna lose it here. Uh, I like the idea of a winner and a loser, and it's funny because being a part of YSN and how as we continue to grow, you root for more and more schools and athletes. It's not just a handful of you know athletes anymore. Like we're rooting for a bunch of different schools and athletes, but it just always for me it was that just being able to you know participate in something knowing that I had a chance where I could affect the outcome and help my team win, even if it was my family playing with my cousin or brother. Just knowing that I could do something and help him win this basketball game or baseball, football, whatever sport you want to name. It was just really special to me. And I think you do make a good point, Anthony, about how, we weren't really, we played the challenger sports, challenger baseball, but we've always had to kind of adapt. We couldn't play sports, the uh, most, I guess you could say, traditional ways that people get into team sports and different activities and stuff like that. Like we had to adapt a little bit, but it is a weird thing where like, man, why does it mean so much to me? But also for me, and I'm sure this is the case for you, Anthony, like it's it's made my relationships stronger as well, and it brings a special bond with it, and the socialization part of it, because I consider myself very sociable and a social butterfly, and I know you are too. And it's not even so much the games all the time or the outcome of the games. It's just about being with people that you care about. So that's a big part of it for me too.
Scotty, one of the things that I think about, um, is the last time I really was able to ever like compete with my peers per se is gym class in middle school, and I think also one of the things that got me like in that competitive spirit was the fact that like I had classmates that did not look at my disability as something that, oh, if we're playing mat ball, which is like indoor kickball almost kind of thing, where I would kick the ball with a crutch, right? So it'd still go, but if they got the ball or they caught it, like I did not have classmates that would like purposely drop it just because, oh, we need to get Anthony on base or things like that. In my gym teacher, shout out to Mr. McClellan out there, who would refuse to let kids do that anyway. He'd be like, "Get him out," I'd be running a second, and he'd tell someone, "Throw the ball at him, throw it," Never treated me like a fragile person that couldn't get contacted or couldn't get out in a game or whatever. But those kind of moments, when you're growing up, those kind of put little core memories into your brain. And then, of course, like I said, like for me, it's funny because like you came from a family that was really passionate about sports. My family likes sports. They'll go to sporting events. They root for their teams, of course. But like, it's not like they're like, I don't have any super fans in my family. Like my room, as you can tell, is all sports. Like I have Georgia Tech stuff all over the place, Kansas City Royals, Chiefs, you know, it's all sports everywhere, right? Like none of my brother's rooms are like fanatic sports rooms, or they don't like have jerseys all over the place. They're fans. Yeah, they played sports when they were in high school. My brother Tom played basketball for the varsity team his senior year, and Billy played, soccer at South Range, but back when it was a club, not a team sport. So they played sports, but they weren't like, super, super passionate about sports. So I didn't even have that. So I think for me, like I said, I think it was one, going to school with really good athletes and supporting those athletes, and then seeing the way that my support affected them and their play, and knowing that was important. So I think that's one of the reasons I became so passionate about it. So let's get back on track though. Let's talk about this dunk contest, because we talked about you being introduced. Now let's talk about just watching it and what you thought about the dunk contest. Obviously, Nick Ryan wins it with a couple of really awesome, unbelievable dunks. Eddie Navis put on a show. Duncan Moy really did well. Unfortunately, he had a 49, and Navis and Ryan both had 50s. So, 1 point. But Duncan Moy, Scotty, was the quote-unquote favorite coming in. A lot of people thought he was going to be the dunk contest champion. And what was it like to see two guys step up and have dunks that were so good that they surpassed them into the finals?
Yeah, it was really a treat, and I'm still a little bit bummed that I couldn't convince DJ to let one of the guys jump over me. Maybe, who knows? Maybe in the future, uh, I'll get a couple drinks and DJ. Maybe I could.
Oh God.
Uh, Maybe I'll be able to convince them at some point. But it was just so cool. And I don't know about you, Anthony. I know you don't really watch um, like you're not big on the NBA, but I gotta tell you, especially in recent years, and even if you want to go back 10, 12 years, I mean, that dunk contest we saw on Saturday, high schoolers or not, that's one of the best. It was one of the best dunk contests like I've seen in my life. Um, though some of those dunks were, I thought, really amazing, and if I could have gave some 20s out there, I would have done that, but that would have really required a lot of math. It would have really um, kind of threw a wrench into things. So I wanted to keep it at the highest at 10, but um, couldn't imagine like they all had to, knowing this was the first time we were doing something like this, and it was basically not that the other things didn't matter, but it's like this was the spectacle. This was the show pretty much everyone was waiting for, with myself, and you had everybody else from WFMJ and Kelly the Ghost Pavlik and Bernie. So everyone was waiting for this all night. And to rise to the occasion, to not crack whatsoever under pressure. The second that first dunk went down and it was clean, I'm like, man, these kids they're ready to go. They are amped up and ready to put on a show, and it did not disappoint. Again, going back to the whole thing of competition brings out the best in everybody. I think after that first dunk went down and it was great and it was clean, it got the crowd going. It made everyone else participating in the contest want to one up the
Yeah.
previous person. So
You know, one of the things that surprised me, Scotty, I thought that they would take more time. Like I thought they would, think about it, sit there, dribble for a little bit, think about what they. No, they were like, well, a lot of them were like 5 seconds and done. It's like boom, okay. They hear that dunk contest went a lot faster than I thought it would because these guys did not take a lot of time. They just went. You know what? They knew what they were gonna do. They went, they did it, and they rocked it on their first try most of the time. So I thought, wow, this just went by in a flash. Did you feel that like it was over
yeah,
before it even
like,
started? Like, oh man, what happened? We just got here. We're already done.
yeah, it was definitely short and sweet for sure. A little too fast, to be honest with you, because as you said, Anthony, it was so much fun. But man, I just feel like, and it was great. It was outstanding. I do think, that part of me does think we're just scratching the surface, though, and only better days ahead as far as events like this go. Um, but it was just I was really surprised with the creativity and some of the dunks. It took them to they didn't get them on the first try. It took an extra crack or two for them to get it down, but most importantly to me, it's not about getting it on your first dunk. It's just about landing a really good dunk. And I thought they were able to do that. And
That's an interesting thought, Scotty. I want to stop you real quick because you just said it wasn't about landing your first dunk, getting a dunk in. I felt like that final, or maybe it was there was some point when the kid before him just nailed the first dunk, and it was like, oh my gosh, he has drilled one. And then the next kid, I can't all it all watched together because it happened so fast. But I feel like one kid nailed the dunk, and then there was a kid after him who went up. He didn't nail the first try, but then he nailed a really cool one in his second try. But it felt like maybe from the other judges, maybe it was you two. I don't remember who gave what scores, but it felt like just maybe there was a little bit luster when you don't hit the first one. It's like, oh, it took you two tries to do it, so maybe you don't get as high a score. Did you subconsciously feel that way? Like, okay, you missed it, then you made it the second time. That's maybe not as impressive as someone that just drilled it his first try.
see, I myself wasn't really thinking that. I
I
was
feel like it
trying.
was an unconscious thing too. I feel like it was like when you miss it the first time and they because you can't erase from your mind that they missed a dunk, right?
Yeah,
So subconsciously, I feel like even myself watching it, I wasn't like when the kid hit it on the first try, I was like, oh my god, But like the second one, I was like, that's cool, but it wasn't as like I didn't feel my reaction like the blood boil as much as it did when he hit it on the first try, which it was still an awesome dunk. Watching the highlights and watching it back, it was like, oh my word, this is awesome. But I feel like subconsciously, when you miss the first one, you can't erase that from the judges' minds, and you might get hurt because from the scores because of it.
yeah, and do agree with that because now that you say that, there was a dunk. It came back to my memory. And the kid, he missed the first one, but he was
Right. And it
able.
wasn't the final because I know the final. I know Nick Ryan had an awesome one. Eddie Nieves went for an awesome one, and then he decided just to throw one down because the time was kind of ticking. I think it was in the first round, the dunk that I'm thinking of.
And I remember giving a score of an 8. And it was probably because he was on his second. And I know one of the judges, I can't remember who it was, but I think we all gave tens, and then
Madison Traveler. Yeah,
somebody.
I think she was tired of hearing people say all week that she was going to be a soft judge. She's like, well, you know what? Wasn't good enough for a 10 for me. Boop,
Yeah,
9. Oh, the crowd reaction. I love it.
no,
I hope that she did that just for the crowd reaction because that was awesome because the crowd that tells you the crowd's in it. When they're hinging on that last judge, it's almost like dodgeball. Madison Tromler turned into Chuck Norris, right?
yeah.
Where you're hinging on that last one to pop up and it's like 10, 10, 10, and then it's like boom, 9, and the crowd just went
Then you
boo.
have you see him eating a chicken leg.
Right. Oh,
I won that.
that trophy was mine. Now see, that would be a really cool piece of content for Duncan Moy. Sitting there like, this for fun. That trophy was mine.
Yeah.
Madison Traveler. Oh, that would have been hilarious. But just to wrap it up full circle before we take a break, Scotty, final thoughts about your time at the All-Star game.
Oh, final thoughts. I want to say, as I told you at the top of the show, I'm still as psyched today as I was Sunday when it was happening. So I'm still like floating on a cloud right now. And I know I made a post about it, but can't. There's so many people to thank. Obviously, DJ, he's right at the front of that, comes to mind immediately. But Donnie and everybody else that was just did so many things and was so great to me on Sunday. And I guess my last thoughts were, it was great because it's always cool to see sports stars or former stars, champions, like seeing and meeting Kelly Pavlik again. I met him before, but seeing Bernie come home, to my knowledge, like there hasn't been many things, if any, that really recognized them like we did, on Sunday. So just seeing that and how the crowd reacted to Bernie and him staying for autographs, and I saw him signing stuff for quite a while and interacting with the youth, the kids. So it was really special, man. And I just wanted to say thank you to you, Anthony, as well, because you've always had my back and supported me. I've had some low moments. I've gone through some stuff, and it hasn't been always at my best on here. None of us are, but I strive to be better each and every day, and you help me to get there, Anthony. So thank you to you as well, and just everybody that made the night happen for me. It was really special, and it was truly an honor to be a part of the first YSN All-Star Dunk Contest.
Absolutely, Scotty. We're gonna have to have you back next year. Now we have to think about what we're gonna do with you for the softball baseball game.
Yeah,
what can we have Scotty do? How can we make Scotty be a part of that? Get your minds thinking. Who knows how Scotty will pop up in those games. Maybe we'll have to see how much he can do the underhand toss and get you a softball first pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give it a try.
Scotty, come on, ring that arm around.
I'm much better right-handed than I am lefty-wise. So I'll definitely I'll throw my best. I gotta get stronger though.
We're gonna take a break on Running Point, and when we get back, we'll have more local talk. We'll also update you on what games are still happening tonight. There are still some field condition issues that have some games still canceled for the night, but some games are still going. So we'll update you on that when we get back on Running Point. Brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet.
21 News delivers the news as it happens, using the latest technology from where it happens.
Live here outside the Mahoney County.
On air, online,
Wednesday afternoon weather update.
Very dangerous.
and on the 21 News social media platforms.
I'm on the road right now.
21 News, the Valley's only locally owned source for trusted news since 1953.
Craftsmanship to us is 60 years of pride and dedication.
Passed down from generation to generation.
The hardwood floors that your kids take their first steps on.
The solid wood doors you quietly close at night.
The things we create day in and day out are the products that end up turning your house into a home.
At Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, uncompromising quality and craftsmanship built our business.
And it will keep us moving forward for generations to come.
Going the extra mile at Greenwood Chevrolet means we want to take care of the community that takes care of us too.
And we have to work together always. And that's how you stay in business for 40 years.
I love being a helper because when I help somebody, it makes me feel good.
It means a lot that I can make a difference in others' lives.
So I will do everything I can and just being there for them every step of the way.
I want them to know within the first 5 minutes that they could depend on me. That's what going the extra mile means, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Before the lights come on, before the workday begins, before a long day is ended, or it's time to have fun. It all starts with the people at Joe Dickey Electric. From replacing a light fixture in your home to building a substation for your business, no job is too big or too small. The people of Joe Dickey Electric power them all. Joe Dickey Electric, over 60 years of powering the Mahoning Valley.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Anthony Hartwig, Scotty Mincher next to me. It's softball season, which means, like last year, I'm gonna have a different softball on this desk every day, and I have a lot of them. The camera can't pop it up. Like there's softballs everywhere in my room that are all signed by important people in my life or are really big members of the softball community, or sometimes both. A lot of times both. So we'll have a softball on the desk every day, a different one every day. This one for today is signed by the two Northeast Ohio pitchers that will be going on to Georgia Tech to continue their softball career. Sydney Watts, of course, we all know her from Austintown Fitch, but then Carter Wachtel as well from Worcester Triway. They played each other in a scrimmage, and I was lucky enough to get them both to sign a softball. So that's today's softball feature of the day. If you don't know me, I don't know if you've been living under a rock or this is your first time watching the show. I'm a softball junkie, so we will have a lot of softballs during the season that we get featured on this show. With that being said, Scotty Mincher, what else is on your mind today, buddy? We haven't dived into your mind yet on what you brought to the table because we got so caught up in talking about the All-Star game, which rightfully so, it was an awesome event.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk because it is baseball and softball season once again. I wanted to talk a little locally on that. I also, and we could kind of revisit this, we could, they don't have to be final, but it's also tomorrow is opening day for everyone in Major League Baseball. So I'd also like to get your World Series picks.
It'll be a total guess, Scotty. I got to be honest. I haven't been keeping up with like who's looking good or what teams look like other than Kansas City. I'm not going to be that naive fan that thinks Kansas City's winning the World Series this year. Sorry, we're not there yet. But it'll be a guess, but I'll give you a guess. I'll give you my wild guess about what the World Series is going to be this year.
Okay, cool.
Do you want to start with local?
Yes.
Right. Who do you want to talk about, Scotty? What's on your mind?
Starting with local, I just wanted to know from you. I saw that Columbiana's off to a good start, both in softball and in baseball, and I wanted to know from you, what are you looking out for when it comes to them? Do you think that Columbiana in both softball and baseball, do you think they could really make some waves this year? They're off to good starts. So just your thoughts on them, and then also just around the entire baseball and softball world. I just wanted to know some things that maybe people aren't talking about right now, that some storylines that you kind of have your eye on.
All right, well, we'll start with Columbiana, Scotty. And yes, they both were off to a really good start. They both had great season openers. Columbiana baseball got to open up with league play against Lisbon, and Alex Eusebio pitched an amazing game on the mound. Both these teams are going to hang their hats on, well, I should say hat and visor, because softball players don't wear ball hats. They wear visors, but they're going to hang their hats on pitching. They both have wonderful pitching staffs, and different mindsets, right? Because softball, you can have really two pitchers to get you through a high school season, and for baseball, you need an actual staff because obviously there's a pitch limit. But they both have really good staffs, headlined by really, really, really good pitchers. Mackenzie Gamble and Alex Eusebio are both going to probably be the quote-unquote aces for those teams. But then, for softball, right behind her, you have Caitlin Pleska, who had an awesome year last season. She'll have an awesome year in the circle this year. So you have two knockdown pitchers for Columbiana. And then, you look at Columbiana baseball and their ability to pitch just goes really deep. We saw that last year. Doherty, will come in and They have a lot of good arms in that bullpen. So I think Columbiana and baseball and softball, both favorites in EOAC in my mind. They both have other teams that will contest them. I think, especially in softball, I think United will have something to say about it. But you could call them the quote unquote favorites, and they're both in my mind sleepers when you go to the Division III tournament. Now they're smaller teams, and the Division III tournament gets harder every year because it gets bigger. It seems like our district keeps welcoming in more and more teams. Now you might have to deal with what we dealt with in basketball, with not just a super district, but now a supreme district is what I call it in basketball, with basically everyone in your region could end up in your district. So yeah, it gets really tough to get out of a district for smaller schools like Columbiana, but I think they're absolutely sleepers on both sides because pitching wins games.
It does. Do you agree when people say that at the start of the seasons that pitching is ahead of hitting? And do you think that's maybe why? Not the total, obviously, it's about somebody having their good stuff in their control and putting the work in. But do you think it's part of the reason why we saw an Alex Eusebio dominate in the fashion that he did with the 12 strikeouts and not allowing a run last night? Do you think pitchers just have the advantage early, or is it just that there's like so many good ones around the area that we've talked about that the hitting's not necessarily caught up to it yet?
Well, no matter what level of baseball or softball you're talking about, early in the season, you're definitely going to see pitchers have an advantage because live at bats and reps, there's no substitute for it. And these teams have spent the off season, hitting off a machine or hitting front toss or, the live pitching they've seen is little and far between. They have a couple of scrimmages, yes. But even that, like the pitchers aren't bringing out all their stuff. I went and watched Carter Wachtel and Sidney Watts, pitch to each other. But I know there were pitches that Sidney Watts and Carter Wachtel, really didn't throw. Like they weren't really trying to throw everything out. So even in those scrimmages, you're not seeing everything. But once day one hits, it's like I'm giving you everything I got to get you out. So these batters have to make adjustments. Now, when you talk high school, though, it's not always a level playing field, and we all know that. Sometimes the hitters are just better. They're better than the pitchers they're going up against, and sometimes it's vice versa because there's no there's no even ground. They're this kids playing in high school. Obviously, in MLB and in Division I college softball, everyone's there for a reason. Everyone's really talented. That playing ground is a little bit more even. So the catch up time doesn't take too long. But these dominant pitchers that we're talking about in softball and baseball probably going to be dominant all year. It's because they're playing a lot of lineups that just aren't equipped to fully 1 through 9 go up against pitching at that level. And that's just the reality of high school baseball and softball. There aren't a lot of teams on both sides that can go up against a Sidney Watts 1 through 9 and have all 9 of those hitters be ready for that level of pitching. Or an Alex Eusebio, or pick your pitch, Michael Patelis from Canfield. There aren't a lot of baseball lineups that will say 1 through 9, all these hitters are ready for that level of pitching. It's just the reality of high school baseball, right? That's why they say it's a really hard jump to college, because now 1 through 9, those hitters are used to playing that level of pitching, and all of them can hurt you in some kind of way. So that's why it's such a big jump for pitchers to go from high school to college, because you're having to face a whole lineup now. And in high school, let's back to Sidney Watts, the great teams might have 4 or 5 hitters that she really has to worry about that are used to her velocity, that can catch up to that speed. But most of these high school teams, 1 or 2 maybe, that are used to that quality pitching, the rest are just, they're lost. They can't catch up to 68 miles an hour. They just can't do it. I've watched. It's like you can tell them all the time, hey, react earlier, but they're just not at that level, and they cannot catch up to that velocity. It's just not in their wheelhouse. But when she gets into Georgia Tech and she's in the ACC, everyone in that conference They've all seen 68 like it's nothing, right? So they can all catch up to that speed. That's why it's going to be a jump. That's why it's always a jump. Every pitcher that goes into college, you're facing a lineup that's all used to this level. So high school will always have a little bit of advantage to pitchers that are good. Good pitching will always have a little bit of an advantage in high school because most lineups can't go 1 through 9, all used to that level of pitching in high school.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think any level, like when you talk about the jump in sports and the jump in softball, to the point where, everybody has seen the point you were making about how everybody is seeing the speed and they see the 60 some 70 mile per hour pitches. So they're ready for it. But it'll be interesting to see, even with Columbiana and Alex Eusebio, like it'll be. I'm very curious, like the schedule they go up against, and when you're facing somebody like that talented, it's like, what do you try to do to combat his effectiveness on the mound? Like, do you call for time, or are you more aggressive at the plate, or do you want to make him throw more pitches so you can get him out of the game quicker? But the thing is about Columbiana, even last night, they had several guys coming in relief and do a really good job too. So, you look at it down their entire pitching staff, and they all were effective. But do you see teams with trying they're not going to totally stop these pitchers and just, you're not going to light them up. Chances are slim you're going to be able to do that. But I guess my last question is, that you see teams maybe taking more of an aggressive approach when they face pitchers like that, or do you think it'll be more of a kind of a wait and see mode?
It depends. I mean, it depends. Like every team's different, but like, let's just go. I'm sorry, I don't mean to fall, into the Sydney Watts trap and always talk about her, but let's just go back to the big name. Like, some teams have the mindset when they go up against her that they're a little timid. Obviously she's talked about it a lot. She's thought of as the best pitcher in the area, one of the best pitchers in the state, ranked in the country, et cetera, et cetera. You're just a normal high school kid going up against that. You don't play high school, like high level travel ball. You're trying to go up, there's a lot of intimidation there, right? So it's hard to be aggressive when you're sitting there like, oh my gosh, she's about to throw 68 miles an hour right at my head. Because her rise ball comes up here, right? It's not inside a lot, so it's not like she's throwing it at you. But, her rise ball is going to end up at your eyes, and it's also 68 miles an hour. That's intimidating, right? But there are the teams that don't have that, and they're just like, you know what, we're not scared. We are going to go and play Sydney Watts because she puts on her clothes the same way we do, and she ties her shoes the same way we do, and we're going to go out there and be aggressive. I have to give a shout out to Boardman, actually, because last year, although Boardman did not beat Austintown Fitch, I felt like they had the best game plan, and they actually, I believe, the whole season had more base runners against Sydney Watts than anybody. So Boardman out there had the right idea. You have to have a game plan. If you don't have a game plan, you're lost before you even start. She'll beat you even with a game plan most of the time. But if you don't have at least a idea of what you want to do and stick to it, you might as well just take a trip back to the dugout right now, because you're not going to win. And the game plan against Sydney Watts is, you have to sit on the speed. You have to. There's no other choice. She has off speed. She has to change up. She will throw low in the zone. But if you don't sit the velocity, you'll never catch up to it. You better set speed and then try to react to her off speed. Because if you don't, you're in a load of trouble. And Boardman did that pretty dang well. They put balls in play last year. They didn't strike out too much. Obviously, she's going to strike you out. And like I said, I believe, can't confirm this. Coach Ward might come in the comments, but I believe if you look at that, especially the Boardman game at Boardman, the one I broadcasted, I feel like they had more base runners than you almost ever see against Sydney Watts. They weren't able to bring him in. They weren't able to get that timely hit, which is why they ended up losing that game. But I feel like the offensive game plan that Coach Moots and the Spartans had last year actually was pretty as effective as you can hope for when you're at that level. So I'm excited to see those same hitters because Boardman brings back almost the exact same team go up against Sydney Watts again this year. I know everyone's excited for Canfield Fitch, obviously, because that was such a good matchup last year, and they still have to play each other again one more time. Fitch got the upper hand in the first one. But I'm kind of sneakily looking forward to Boardman Fitch because of the way their offense kind of had that game plan last year, and they bring back almost every hitter from last year. Well, Scotty, I just looked, and we have talked over our time. Well, not our time limit. It's not like it's not like we're attuned to 2:00, but we are in overtime. So real quick for you, because I promise you World Series guesses, and this is just throwing a dart against a wall, right? So I'm gonna say, in the NL, I am feeling the Phillies. Give me the Phillies in the World Series, okay?
Okay.
AL, you know what? It's lame. It's generic, but they're on a kick right now. They've been on a kick since 2017 and being one of the best teams in the AL. Give me the Astros in the AL, and I'll take the Astros to win it.
Astros win it again.
Yeah, I'll say Astros win the World Series in 6 games.
I can respect that pick.
I promise you, if that happens, we are replaying this in October. I will dig this up. I would dig this content up, and I will play it on the show, and I'll be like, look at how smart I am, even though right now I am admitting it is a complete, total throw in the dart. There is no education that goes into it. But if it happens to happen, I will bring it up, and I will act like I knew exactly what I was talking about.
All right. Cool. Hey, that sounds good to me.
Scotty, who do you got?
I honestly think those are two pretty good picks. I was gonna save my picks for Power Hour.
Okay. Lame. You give DJ Power Hour. Okay. Whoa. Okay. You better not pick the Pirates just to appease DJ, right?
No, I can't pick the pot unless
if DJ says, "Hey, you know what? If you pick the Pirates, you can come back and be the dunk contest judge again." You know.
Yeah.
Then it's the Pirates.
Well, if he said that, then
yeah, it's the Pirates, man.
Yeah.
There is no coercion in Running Point and Power Hour. We do not affect Scotty's opinion at all in anything that we do. Scotty is his own man. Own man, Scotty. We want to thank you so much for tuning in. Scotty, you have the week off next week, buddy. We won't see you next week. I'll be on my spring break in Atlanta, and I'll be watching my Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets softball team on Wednesday. So we will see you in 2 weeks back on, what is that, April 10th, I believe. But everyone, for fans of Running Point, I'll be back tomorrow and Friday, and we'll finish out the week. And then we'll have next week off, and then we'll be back the next Monday. But Scotty, buddy, have a good spring break, man. We love you here on Running Point. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. And by the way, I want to tease this a little bit. I can't give out too much information, Scotty, but I believe there is something stirring where we might have a lot of track coverage on Wednesdays. So I'm gonna say,
awesome.
You know, we had Wrestling Wednesdays in the winter. We might move it to Running Wednesdays in the spring. Stay tuned for information. We got something cooking. I'm telling you, we do, Scotty. It's gonna be fun.
Well, it's Running Point, so
Two kids in wheelchairs talking about runners. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be the most ironic hour of streaming ever in online streaming history. I promise you that.
Well, the show is still running.
It is Running Point.
You know, it works.
So, on that terrible note of dark humor, we will bid you adieu. And thank you so much for tuning in to Running Point. We will see you back here tomorrow from 1 to 2. Brought to you, as always, by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin Town. See you all tomorrow.